Hello and welcome to the Skating Lesson Podcast. I'm Jennifer Kirk, a former U.S. ladies competitor and a 3-time world team member.
I'm David Lace. I was not on the world team, as you know by now, but I am a figure skating blogger and a current adult skater.
In this video, we're going to talk about the Four Continents Championship, particularly the men's event, which took place last weekend in Osaka, Japan. And right now you're looking at the results on your screen. Kevin Reynolds from Canada won the gold medal, followed by Yuzuru Hanyu, Max Aaron, Richard Dornbush, and a couple of Americans heading out the top 9. Ross Minor in 9th place.
Yes, and I think notably, Patrick Chan was not here. He chose not to compete here after the national championships. I think it's interesting that he's not here. He hasn't been that dominant force this year that he was last year, even though he did have mistakes last year as well. But he chose to really regroup. Many felt that he perhaps was one-upped by Kevin Reynolds at their nationals. Kevin did so well there, and it looks like Patrick is just trying to refocus. Jeremy Abbott chose not to compete here. He had a lot of back issues this year, and he chose to rest, recover, and get ready for the World Championships. And one person that was kind of passed over for Four Continents was Joshua Farris. They're sending him to Junior Worlds again. And I wanted to ask Jenny her opinion of this. We actually haven't discussed this. She told me to save it for the air. So
I don't even know what you're going to ask.
I want to know if you think that it is bad to Joshua Farris's career that he was not chosen to go to Four Continents. He wasn't given a senior Grand Prix in the fall. He actually had tweeted something, and then it was taken down really quickly that he was disappointed not to get a senior Grand Prix last year. He was second at Junior Worlds. He was second at the Junior Grand Prix final. He's going back to Junior Worlds. I want to know, do you think it hurts his Olympic champions to really be labeled as a junior skater the year before the Olympics?
Oh, you mean his Olympic chances?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. I think there's going to be pressure on him to go to Junior Worlds when you are second the year before. Going back, there's only one spot that you want. I think that's a lot of pressure, but I also think that he could really deliver there, have a moment, and winning that World Junior title could set him up well. It is tough that they didn't send him to Four Continents, but I don't see it as a detriment to his career. I think if he's able to go to Junior Worlds and skate really well and then follow it up next season with a couple of clean skates, great skates on the Grand Prix, he can ride that momentum and try to make an Olympic berth next season. So I don't think it's bad at all. And you mentioned Jeremy Abbott not coming to Four Continents, choosing to stay at home and rest, and I think that was definitely the best decision. But as we look to the men who were in Osaka this past weekend, Kevin Reynolds, we talk about he's a champion coming off strong skate at Canadian Nationals. What did you make of him?
Yeah, I mean, he had Canadian Nationals were 1 week ahead of the U.S. Nationals. So he had another week to kind of rest and recover as opposed to some of our Max Aaron. And it seemed like that really helped him. He skated with a lot of energy. He delivered beautiful quads in both the short and the long. And I think Kevin Reynolds is riding that wave. He surprised a lot of people by doing so well. He backed up his performance at Canadian Nationals, which frankly I think elevates him into a whole nother level going into the Worlds. He's now legitimized his great performance with a big win. He's someone who's riding that wave, and I was really impressed most, not even by his quads, but that he seems to be getting his style together. A year or two ago, Kevin Reynolds was someone with ridiculous costumes, who they seem to be trying to, improve himself artistically, and it was off. The programs weren't great, the costumes weren't great, the packaging was wrong, and it just looks like this year it's coming together, and he's maturing. He's maturing mentally. He's maturing technique-wise.
I think he showed up at this event, and it seemed like he was hungry to be the champion. He skated. He held himself like a champion. It's so impressive. I know you didn't want to go into his quads, but the fact that he can do multiple quads in a short program, I mean, and he has the build of just that. It's similar to Timothy Gable, whom we interviewed on our show. Just very slight build. But conversely, I think that may hurt him in terms of he doesn't have a lot of power on the ice. He doesn't have that muscular strength, that big build, and I think that's one area of his skating that he can work on. But his consistency, what's unique about his jumping too is that he almost delays his rotation. He doesn't get into the snap on his quad. So you think, is he going to pop? What's he going to do? And then before the ending, he's able to really get those 4 rotations, 3 rotations in his triple axel complete. And I think, again, his strength is just his style, his artistry, and definitely this season, his consistency. So as we look ahead to Worlds, different points that are going to be important for Kevin Reynolds are just riding that wave. He's skating so well this towards the latter half of the season. Just enjoy that. Continue to keep up the consistency. Deliver when it counts. Be hungry for a top 5 finish. I think what things that really helped him at 4 continents is he went in and it seemed like he wanted that medal. He wanted to win, and he has to have that same motivation and attitude heading into Worlds and ignore the Canadian that word always trips me up. Canadian media, because they're going to be all over him, particularly having the event in their home country. So just ignore it, focus on his job, and go in, deliver the goods.
Yeah. And I think looking next at Yuzuru Hanyu, someone who's a silver medalist here, he's been such an emerging star for about 2, 3, 4 years now, since he won his junior world title. But we've seen Hanyu all season. He has these goods. He has beautiful jumps, great knees, some of the best knees in skating to pull out some of these landings. But at times it looked like perhaps there was a lack of stamina, but it looks to be like a lack of focus. I know he switched coaches, and it almost looks like the pieces are just not, they're almost all there, but they're not all there. And it's just the mind, he's now competing for gold, and he wasn't competing for gold before. It seems like there's some problems. I know Ilya Kulik had problems like this in the 1997 season, and they were growing pains. They got over them for the Olympic year. He obviously had a wonderful season that year, and I think with someone like Hanyu, I see similarities in between them. One thing I will say about Hanyu is that he's got this great flexibility, and I don't know if his feet are really big compared to the rest of his body. He's so slender, but I don't know. There are certain different, not everyone wears the same brand of skates, and his skates look really boxy and really big, and it cuts off his line. He almost looks like he has these club feet when he's on the ice, and it could be his brand of skate, where they look really square, and it's really cutting. He's killing his line because he always has these club feet, and nothing ever looks finished off. Earlier in the season, his coach said he needs to work on pointing those feet, pointing those toes. I think he does need to do that, obviously, because even when he does a great Bielmann spin with great flexibility, the line is not there. Yeah. It's like sloppy, and you might need to change the skates, because
one of the things that I found really interesting in his short program, he popped his combination, he popped that triple toe, but it didn't affect the flow of the program, which we talked about during our Nationals recap show, that sometimes the program components, they don't reflect if someone has a pop or a mistake in a short program. It does affect the flow of the program, and I didn't see that so much in the short program, which I thought was really a positive and is difficult for skaters to do. Conversely, though, in the long program, he pops that let's again, and I think this time it did affect the excitement and the energy. It seems like his long program, he loses that wind and the momentum towards the end. There isn't that fire and that passion, so I think for him, he has the talent. He obviously has the quads, he has the technique. It's just about focus and really taking himself seriously into the next level, particularly as we head into an Olympic season.
Yeah, he seems to really enjoy skating his short program. It really comes across. Jeff Buttle choreographed it. It looks like he really loves it. It's a little bit different, and it looks like it's something program he believes in. The long's a bit more generic.
I agree.
For a long program, Notre Dame de Paris can be great music. It looks a little Johnny Weir, but not in the state. Johnny had to polish that Hanyu almost has but doesn't have, and he doesn't seem like he believes in the long as much. I think he needs 2 really special programs next year if he wants that Olympic gold medal. For him, his keys to success going into Worlds, he has to have that focus all the way through both programs. We know that he can do that, Lutz. We know he can do it. He can't pop it. He can't be making these errors. He has 3 jumping passes in the short, 8 to get through in the long. He can't be falling on spins. We've seen every mistake under the book for him this season, despite usually being on the medal podium. He needs to do those 2 clean programs. Again, a little bit more time at the top. There's time in skating. Now he's competing for gold. I think he needs to get used to that in the men's field. It's really a big jump. These men usually don't rise as quickly as the ladies, and for him, he just needs a little bit more time and that polish. Now, what do you think about Max Aaron?
Well, obviously he had a disappointing short program here, placing 10th, but rebounding in the long program, again, repeating his meritorious long program that we saw, that similar skate at Nationals. The biggest thing for me, though, for Max Aaron, obviously he has the technique. He's incredible skater just in terms of his speed on the ice, his attack. But that program components, you saw the drop. He's now in the sevens internationally compared to nines at nationals. And I think, unfortunately, the sevens reflect where his skating is today. I'm not a fan of his short program. I think I like what they're trying to do with it, which is using kind of that techno music, trying to make it so that they're enhancing whatever artistry they can pull from him. I think it matches his personality, but the music gets really monotonous at the end. His long program, there's a lot of just mohawk back crossover step, mohawk back crossover step. And as I was watching it, I thought he could learn from Hanyu. The edges, the in-betweens, it's really lacking, particularly in his long program. It's a lot of telegraphing the jumps. The jumps are great, but that second mark isn't there. And I understand he's never going to be a Jeffrey Buttle. He's never going to be that artist on the ice. But I think perhaps long-term, if he were to switch his choreographer, he needs a choreographer that's going to bring out what he has, because there is a spark to him, and he has that consistency. I see that fire, but he needs programs that reflect that. What do you think?
Yeah, I go back to his marks at nationals, and I think he deserved his win. But I do think that the USFS and the judges were really looking to promote whatever skater could do the quad. Max showed that he could do it earlier in the season at the B competition in the U.S. in Salt Lake City, and he was really bumped up into the nines for components. Pushing nines for components. He actually got in the sixes and low sevens here, and he was mostly in the low sevens. But that's a really big difference. And when we talk about griping about national scoring, you have to be accurate with both marks. You can't just give artistic marks, because it really winds up lowering the results of the skaters who do have that second mark and do have that advantage of the great artistry and being more balanced. It pushes a jumper up perhaps higher than they would be, and maybe sends the wrong skaters to Worlds. I think Max, he deserves to be there, but the jumps are really his only weapon at this point. I think the spins, the positions aren't great. I do think it's a masculine program. The in-betweens are not there, but it's at least they're trying to do something with him, but it's just not there. I'm
going to interrupt, but you talk about his spins. His camel spin, he doesn't get to the 90-degree angle. His leg is never up. And there's a moment in his long program, which you just talked about, where the music changes and he's like reaching out to the audience, and it just seems like the choreography, there's no feeling behind it whatsoever. And I wanted at that moment to just kind of, get some emotion from him. Continue, I'm sorry.
And there are so many great coaches at his rink. One of his training mates, Alex Johnson, was someone who maybe didn't stand out a season or two ago, and at Nationals this year had the performance of his life, because he's working with Tom Dixon, and it's been a complete makeover in terms of his style. Sometimes you have a program and a style, and it makes the jumps easier. I think someone from Max, he needs to discover that artistry. If he doesn't have that artistic sensibility, maybe he's just not that artsy person.
And that's okay.
He needs to mask it. It's okay.
Yeah.
But, we're not expecting everyone to be some fantastic artist, but he does need to really improve in that level. Consistency will help him a bit with those marks, but he needs to think about the makeover for next season. So I think really looking, yeah.
Yeah, so looking ahead to his keys to success heading into Worlds, again, we talk about he needs to think about a new choreographer long-term, polish those programs before Worlds, get some more of that in-betweens if he can add it, particularly in the long program, deliver his jumps. Right now it seems like that's his main weapon. Some may argue his only weapon. Also, understand international feedback versus nationals. Those component program bonus at nationals probably were very inflated. And think about the makeover. Heading into the Olympic season, I think, again, the short program, what they're trying to do there, and even with the long, it's in the right direction, but it needs to go a little bit further. Next skater from the United States, Ross Minor. Disappointing finish here. What did you take from what did you make of how he skated here at Four Continents, Dave?
I think Ross Minor is at a crossroads. He made the world team, which is fantastic for him. He had a really good skate at nationals. I see him as someone who has outgrown his current situation. This is his third year on the world stage. He went to Worlds in 2011. He was the alternate last year. He's going back, and while that's great, I don't see him moving up that much at the World Championships. And I think if you're not moving forward, you're really falling behind. And I think for Ross, it's great that he's trying the quad. He wasn't successful here. But I think his technique, the style, everything, his coaches are good. I think, they've got him to where he is, which is on the world team. So they're obviously not doing a bad job with him. But I think if he wants to move forward, become a national champion, become an international medalist, and really try for a top 5 finish and go for that medal, which he seems like a very hardworking kid and a very competitive kid.
Great.
I think he needs that next level of coach. That coach is that finishing coach, that Tarasova, that Frank Carroll, to really work with him on the details, on bringing a program to the ice, and with technique.
Yeah, you talk about the technique, and we see in the short program, missing that combination, the quad Salchow, and also the triple axel. You see on this quad Salchow, it's very swingy. And Mark and Peter, his current coaches, they teach that circular technique. It's very reminiscent of what we see in a Russian technique, whereas Frank Carroll is very linear. A lot of the American coaches like to teach that linear technique. And what happens on a Salchow like that, when you get around, there's no hope for catching it because your arms are going ahead of your body. We see it a little bit with some of the ladies. Gracie Gold, talk about in the ladies show, Mawasada, but he really needs, I think, a coach that's going to kind of rework that technique, make it more linear. Triple axel, it's a really unique technique, and when it works for him, it does, but it's really scary in that takeoff because he's going around that circle, and you're going to get outside the circle, you're going to get away from yourself. It makes it really difficult to catch those landings.
And he drags that right leg up into the jump. It's reminiscent, really, of his coach Mark Mitchell's triple axel. Frankly, it's not great technique, and I don't think it's going to help him in the long term. I think he obviously is a talented jumper.
Really talented. And talented, you talk about hard worker. You could tell he has that competitive grit and fire. Consistent skater for the most part, but yeah, just that.
I think he just needs an upgrade. When you're in school, you don't have the same teacher every single year. You have your middle school teacher, you have your freshman year, your sophomore year, and then someone brings something else, maybe to your writing or to mathematics or something like that. And I think Ross has kind of been with these coaches for a while now, and I think he got everything he's going to get from them. Honestly, believe it. I think it's time to look at the next, who can bring that next level of polish, can improve that technique a little bit, because he's someone who he seems to have a good mind for competition. He's pretty consistent. He's good at rotating in the air, but it's the entrances, and I think it's something where that axle is scary. And his things here. They talk about the Salchow and the axle. That's really was his downfall here. And the second mark, his programs, I just don't find them to be inspired. I think that he's not getting, to the proper camel position like Max Aaron. Like, he's doing a good camel spin, but nothing stands out with Ross. And a lot of these competitors that he's competing against with the men, there are now men who bring it artistically.
Mm-hmm.
So in the men's field, you can almost
Hanyu,
forget.
a Takahashi, a Reynolds. Yeah. I mean, these are skaters who have that extra. And I think Max is the kind of skater who could bring that. He does have that desire, and he has a good line on the ice. It's just the programs are falling short a little bit. So heading into Worlds, what do you think are his keys to success, Dave?
Honestly, I think he needs to look around. I don't want to get shot here, but I think he needs to really look at a coaching change for long-term success. If Evan is injured, I think he needs to get on a flight to Los Angeles and work with Frank Carroll, because I think that could help him. He needs to tweak that technique, especially the axle. He's doing the quad sound now, but he needs to do it every single time. And I think for the American men, forget the 3 spots and thoughts of next season making the Olympics. He has the talent to deliver at Nationals. He has delivered at Nationals. The U.S. men are a long shot to get 3 spots under the best case scenario. There are just so much talent around the world. We saw the European Championships. The men were landing quads left and right in the final group. If those men deliver, the U.S. men don't have a chance at getting 3 spots, so they should not even think about it. Worry about next year when next year happens, and really just go in. Don't even think about it.
Yeah, just skate those clean programs. And finally, Daisuke Takahashi came to this event really disappointing skates. It seemed like, I just want to do a disclaimer, I trained with him for a couple years in Michigan. Actually, I went to his birthday party, and he was a good unknown skater, and I remember I didn't know what to get him. I was really like, he didn't speak English.
Did you get him hair gel?
I got him a necklace, and I thought, is that a little bit like, getting a guy a necklace from Abercrombie? But seemed like he liked it. He's a really sweet kid, and on a side note, I really enjoy him. But it seemed like at this competition, he didn't have that fire, and it seemed like he was almost tired in a way. The short program was mired in mistakes. The technique, the quads in the long program, not rotating those jumps, not getting backwards. It's worrisome heading into Worlds. It just seemed like he doesn't have that spark that we saw in previous seasons, and I worry for him heading into the World Championships after this event and Japanese Nationals.
I feel for him. Last year, many felt that he was robbed at the World Championships, or at least underappreciated in terms of his component scores. They felt that he gave the performance and that Patrick Chan didn't have the emotional connection that you get from a Takahashi performance. Honestly, I keep going back to the fact that at the height of his career, he won 4 continents in 2008 with this amazing performance. He had the Cyber Swan that year. Then he was injured the next year. I believe he injured his knee. And it seems like that injury impacted the rest of his career. He has never quite seemed as consistent with his jumping. His edges are fantastic. They are some of the best I think we've ever seen. He's someone who can make you forget that you're watching an IJS program. I can't stand IJS programs. When I watch Takahashi, I buy in. He's much. He's a lot. He's a lot to handle. There's a lot of hair. There's a lot of costumes. He's always on and he's, moving, but either you love it or you hate it. I choose to love it personally. And I think, he gives it to you. He's going for the judges, in this program this year. But the jumps sometimes are not around, and you have to wonder, is it his body? Earlier in the season, he looked a little bit fresher. Here, he's not as young as he was 4 years ago, and you have to wonder, is his body breaking down slightly? He's been around for a long time at the top, and I think that the human body can only withstand so many quads, so many falls on quads, so many missed triple axels, so many landed triple axels. So I think with him, I do get the sense that his days at the top could be somewhat numbered. I think he's giving everything he has every time he goes out in order to win. And we saw he won the Grand Prix final. He might have, but he's not someone, I think, that if everyone is clean, I don't know if he's going to win this year. I think that there are some younger guys with some phenomenal jumping ability doing 3 quads. He doesn't do 3 quads. I think you feel for him because I think he's not on upward slope.
Yeah. Well,
so I think looking at
I was going to say, heading into the event, I'm sure he's going in hungry for that win. And really what it's going to take for Takahashi is to rotate those jumps. We saw in the long program, those quads were not rotated. He's got to get backwards on those landings. He needs to reignite that fire that we saw from him a few years ago. Forget his past success, doing so well in previous seasons, previous events. He has to take this World Championships as a new, fresh event. And he has to skate from the heart. Like you said, Dave, he has that passion. He has that the skating skills that really make you forget that you're watching an IJS program. And he needs to find that fire within, forget past mistakes, forget past injuries, and really skate hungry and from his heart. So all in all, I would say a pretty good men's event. Definitely looking forward to the World Championships where we're going to see Patrick Chan, some of these skaters coming back, and European skaters as well. So that'll be a whole nother show for us to talk about. But we thank you for tuning in. Again, you can leave your comments below. Email us if you have anything else you'd like to add. But we appreciate your feedback and all of your insight as well.
And as always, we'd like to remind you to hold an edge and look sexy.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.